Go ahead and tell us about who you are and why you're here.
Hey, my name is Andrew. Actually, I'm from Virginia, and I attended NTCC from 2004 by around, I would say 2014, about 10 years like that. And the reason why I'm doing this interview is I just want to just get this off my chest. I didn't really tell really much anybody about what really happened with my time at NTCC.
By anybody,
And
do you
also,
mean anybody in the whole world?
yeah, any world, because like I said,
Okay.
there's some people out there that they may not have attended NTCC, but they have maybe escaped another cult. You know what I'm saying? They can relate.
Yes.
And on top of that, sometimes when people leave a cult, they the outside world will not understand what really happened.
No.
That's another sad thing too. Some may, but not many. So that's a sad thing about people who leave cults or just even a bad situation with the church. You know, they leave and they try to tell what happened, and people just kind of look at them as if they're crazy something.
So you feel
So
like maybe those of us who leave something like that kind of group, we hold it in, we don't share it.
yeah, and then a lot of times people, and other reasons too, is a lot of times people hold it in because they have maybe grudge issues, and it happens. People have grudge issues, and I'm not saying it's right, but people have, they have malice and stuff, and I'm here to actually encourage other people to break out of that, and that there's hope for them, and they can still live for God outside of NTCC.
And there's people who understand, right? I think that's what we've kind of brought
Yeah,
about
and that
here, attention to here.
exactly.
Well, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and tell how you first came to be involved with the group? Is that okay?
Like I said, I was fresh out of high school. It was like April 2004, I think. I think it was April, and I just came out of my MOS school, which is my military occupation school. All military go through their job school. You know, they get trained up and they learn their job or their occupation.
So you were
So
in
I
the
just
Army then?
no,
MOS?
I was actually in the Marine Corps.
Oh, look
Yeah.
out.
So yep. And so I was just fresh out of high school. It was April of 2004. I've heard the other interviews. I was never married. I never went to Bible college. And so I was just, when I came in to the fleet, I was just young and, single and kind of naive at the time, you know what I'm saying? Also, I was not a Christian either. So I grew up in church, and I gave my life to Christ when I was 8 years old, but that really wasn't real, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I need a savior. If I didn't get saved, I would probably went down the wrong path. I came to Camp Lejeune. I was stationed in Camp Lejeune. They gave me a barrack. I think it was maybe a week into the fleet, and then one Sunday I woke up from my barracks and decided I want to go to church. It was the moral thing to do. That's how I was raised up. So I
So,
decided.
can I
So
ask
I
you a quick
go ahead.
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Were you attending church before you got into the Marines?
Yes, kind of like when I was growing up, we kind of church hopped, so we didn't really have a specific church that I grew up with. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
That's
and so,
interesting that you use the terminology church hop as because in NTCC that's a bad thing. But is looking back now, I think the church body is universal, right? So is it church hopping if you're going around to different places?
when I was growing up, my parents didn't really make up their mind where they wanted to go,
Right.
and I don't. And till this day, I don't know the reason why I was a child at the time or a teenager. And there are other reasons why I know why they church hop. I think one church they were just not teaching. I guess they were just not doing things what they're supposed to,
Yeah.
and so it can drive people away. Just like if a church doesn't do what they're supposed to do, or they're full of favoritism, they can run people off. That's another thing by NTCC. They ran a lot of people off, even to the point that a lot of people don't want to go back to church anymore. So there's a lot of
Yes.
problems like that in the church world. So, anyways, I was in the barracks. I want to go to church. Like I said, I grew up church hopping. I didn't really have a specific church that I grew up in. So, and I was just trying to figure out where I want to go to church. So there was a chapel just around the corner, and I didn't have a car then. So I got up, grabbed my Bible, got dressed, Went out the door, walked down the street, around the corner. It wasn't too far. And then as soon as I went down the corner, a car came up, and it was a man. His name was Marvin. And he was a real nice person. And he said he wanted to invite me out to NTCC, which he gave me the card. And I looked down. I said, and I thought to myself, I said, I had never had somebody invite me out to church because I grew up in church. And like I said, I'd never had somebody come up and say, I want to invite you out to church. So it was kind of like a shocker to me. So I grabbed the card. I said, well, I'm going to the chapel down the street. I may come next week. He says, my phone number's on the card. Just give me a call. So I didn't go to NTCC that Sunday, but the next Sunday, I called him up because I was a little curious about it. So I called him up. I said, I want to go to church. I was off base. He came and brought me to NTCC. It was a real small church outside of Camp Lejeune. And there was Pastor Jason. He was my first pastor, and he was a real nice pastor. And I still like him. He's still a good guy. I mean, he's not really.
He's the one. He's the one in Charlotte, North Carolina now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. We were in school with them.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with him.
But yeah, he was. The Jasons were nice. His wife was nice. I think he tried to get me in the Servicemen home. Is a house they buy either buy or rent. Supposed to help you grow. It's a home away from home. Brings single military to the home so they can grow properly in God. It's like I've heard people say it's a clubhouse. I've heard people say that. It's funny.
Clubhouse.
I've actually heard somebody say it's a clubhouse. Like, oh, you go in that clubhouse? I'm like, no, it's not a clubhouse.
Goodness, I never, ever heard that. That is hilarious.
Yeah, not Christians. They weren't Christians. I had people with GIs on base tell me, so you go in that clubhouse out in town? I was like, no, it's not a clubhouse. So, but yeah. And actually, believe it or not, there's a church in Jacksonville, North Carolina, called Grace Baptist Church that actually had the same program as NTC does.
Really?
When it comes to service. Yeah, I think they copied it from us, my personal opinion. But they have a serviceman home too. They bought the house many years ago, and they will invite single military to stay the weekend, during the week or the weekend. I don't know how that works on their part.
Oh, so not to live there necessarily?
Well, I think they do live there, but
okay.
I don't know how it works. I believe they copied it from us, but
you
it
said
serves
us.
a home.
You said us, Andrew. Are you still in?
I didn't mean say us. I'm talking about them. NTCC.
I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
I'm just messing with you.
But that's what they did. They had one too. I've known a lot of GIs that will actually go down and stay at the serviceman home at Grace Baptist Church, and so. But yeah, we weren't the only ones that had it. And so, anyways, Pastor Jason was real nice. He really preached the gospel, and like I said, I never heard a preacher, preach like he did, and he was real nice. I had to cut it short, so I had to go to deployment. And it happened like maybe September, October, I can't remember. And so I got deployed to Iraq, my first deployment. And when I came back, of course, during the time I was in Iraq, I got hit by an IED. And I lost 2 Marines. They died right in front of me. It really wasn't a good deal. And I almost lost my life too. So it kind of woke me up. So I decided I really needed to save. I came back from deployment. I called Marvin. I said, I want to come back to NTCC.
Now, let me ask you something just for clarification.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said you were attending NTCC, right? Before you went on deployment? You went on deployment to Iraq. That's a horrendous thing to go through, what you went through. And then you said you came back and told Marvin that you wanted to come back. I just want to clarify for myself and anyone listening that you said, I came back, you called Marvin and told him you want to come back to NTCC. So that made me think, had he kind of left before he went to Iraq and now he had an eye-opening experience?
I meant to say I'd come back to church.
Okay.
I meant to say come back to church in general, but it was NTCC.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
That's what it was.
All right.
And of course, like before, I wasn't really that faithful. Like before deployment.
Okay.
I was kind of in and out. So after deployment, I had an awakening. God really spoke to me. So I decided to come back, call Marvin. I said, I want to come back to church. So It was actually spring of 2005. I gave my life to Christ. It was literally just the best time of my life. It was just, I knew God did something in my life. And then later on, Pastor Jason was talking. He said he wanted to talk to me. So I said, okay. And I was a new Christian, and I was starting getting in the church. And then he told me, I'm going to leave soon. I'm going to go pastor a church in Washington State. And he said that there's another preacher. He's coming down from Washington State, and he's going to take my spot here. And he is Reverend Gandy.
Oh boy.
And so,
oh boy.
yeah. So at the time, I said I was sad because, like I said, I like Pastor Jason, and I learned a lot from him. And so,
but you weren't living in the home at that point, right?
Yeah. Well, before deployment, I was not. But then, of course, when I came back, I kind of missed it. I meant to mention that I did move it to home when I came back.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because
go ahead.
I think you're the first one, if I'm not mistaken, that I'm interviewing that lived in the home. I think you were one of the ones that filled out a questionnaire, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to use a lot of the information I've gathered to contact the military, not with specific people's names put out, but like the whole group dynamic, like what people are saying in general about their experience. So can you please tell us, when you were living in the home, what was it that caused you to say did you ask to live in the home, or did they ask you, for one thing?
Well, Pastor Jason asked me. He said, he told me about it before, and then he kind of he didn't say he bugged me, but he was kind of like, we have a home here, and he said, he kind of explained it to me. He says, we're welcome to come. It was just it really wasn't forceful.
What were the details of living there?
Under Pastor Jason, it wasn't bad. I know when Gandy came down, it kind of picked up with the strictness. Gandy came down, and he brought all this Bible college, like to Washington State, that culture and everything.
Yes.
He brought it all the way down to us, to the home in
Well, let's
Jacksonville.
then that's good. Let's see the contrast then. Under Jason, what kind of house was it? How many other guys were living there? What did you pay? What were you required to do?
Well, we paid $150 a month. It was like, and the home was actually a rented house. It belonged to, I believe the retired military. I'm not quite sure. And he rented out to us. Of course, we never saw him, but there in the home, there was probably about, I can't remember. It was probably like 4 or 5 guys living there.
All in one room or different rooms?
It was a separate room because the house was kind of big. It was a good size house.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and it had like the, had the upstairs, and you had the main floor, then you had a basement, which is what was another room what they used for fellowship. When Pastor Jason was there, the service home was not that strict. But when Gandy came down, he kind of reminds me of General Patton, George Patton, back in World War II.
Yeah.
He was kind of like really just this gung-ho type preacher. And it really set a lot of people off. And I think it ran a lot of people off too. But that's pretty much the comparison between when the Reverend Gandy came. We saw there was a big change and a big difference.
Let's, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want
Go ahead.
Really good clarification here. So you're living in the home with the Jasons, right? So you've got a married couple. Were there any helpers there at the time?
Yes, there was one man. He was a single man. His name was Reverend Volks, and he was just a young preacher.
Okay.
And
okay.
And so that was the only one.
Did he live there as well?
Yeah, he lived in the home with us as well. Because, like I said, he was single. He wasn't married. So
okay.
He was a Marine too at one time. So he was real nice too.
So did you have to get it cleared with the base with the military to be able to go live there?
No, not really. I know when I started living there was a lot of questions that rose up about me living there. I know one of my staff NCOs came down. He had kind of like talked to me about me living downtown, and then he said that he was a little bit concerned of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because he said that at one time. Of course, at that time I didn't listen to him because I thought maybe you had people on base that were not Christians.
Right.
I had people that just did not like Christians at all.
You thought it was the devil fighting.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
So, but anyways, he came down and he told me he said he was concerned, and he said that he knew of a Marine one time that did something similar. Now I don't know if it was NTCC, but he said had a church at one time take all his money away, and it really messed up his finances. And they just kind of told me it's like this scary story about a GI a long time ago that dealt with a church one time. So that's the only thing that kind of raised questions about me living downtown. But they never really say I couldn't do it. They said as long as I'm there for formations on time, because you got to think about people living out in town all the time.
Right.
Especially when we have men, they have girlfriends out in town and they just go out and live with them.
Oh, so you could go and live off the base, but you weren't receiving any like housing allowance from the military for that, right?
No, I didn't receive any housing allowance.
Because
I
you were
asked
a
them about it. They
single
said,
guy living in
yeah,
the barracks, so why would they give it to you? You had a free place to live.
yeah. But like I asked about base housing, he said that situation wasn't authorized. I wouldn't authorize base housing with that certain situation. They would have to come down and see what about the house and this and that. He says, well, as long as you care for formations, that's fine. But he says that I'm just concerned about you, and if you got any problems, to let me know.
That guy, he was on it. I mean, it sounds
Yeah,
like he cared about you and he
yeah, he was real nice.
he
Yeah,
saw
he
the
was
red
nice.
flags before you did, maybe.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really know at the time. Like I said, I was young, kind of like
Yeah.
fresh out of high school, and I didn't, like I said, when he said about a GI that a church took his money and this and that, I thought he was just saying things because he just didn't like God.
Right.
So
Right.
and it does happen though,
Oh, yes.
but the kind of thing about it, it could have been a GI that dealt with NTCC long time ago, and
Well, because
and
really,
that.
Andrew, if you think about it, I mean, that's looking back now, that's how I view the Servicemen's Home. It's where I was
Mhm.
first reached. It's like a commune. I mean, it's kind of creepy, really.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
Well, actually, it's a real like. It depends on the situation. I know one of the interviews you said a long time ago about when Devonshire. I never met Devonshire. I've seen him before. He came down to our church one time to preach a revival. I've heard stories about his strict codes of conduct for just for say when it
yes.
comes with the NTCC and the service in the home. But the service in the home was not that strict compared to him.
All right.
But when, like I said, Gandhi came down, yes, it was strict, but wasn't like that severe.
All right. So I'm going to stop you again because there's a lot of people that probably do not understand the concept of the Servicemen's Home. So you're living there ostensibly home away from home and a more pure environment free of all of the goings ons of everyone who's not a Christian on base. So you live there. Did you have responsibilities in the home?
Yes, we were responsible for paying the $150 a month, and we were responsible of attending church every service, every soul winning meeting, and every Bible study. That was the rules of the service home, and of course we weren't allowed to play anything besides gospel music.
Yeah.
No rock, no country, and they told us that.
Did you watch
They told
TV? Was there a
Say again?
TV? Was there a TV in the home at the time?
No, there's no TV.
Okay.
I know there was a radio. I know.
Did you have responsibilities as far as upkeep of your room and the bathroom areas and
Yes,
stuff like that?
especially Reverend Gandy. He was very very particular, and like he wanted everything just so. He was kind of strict. Of course, he was controlled too, but he was a strict person, kind of like he wanted everything just so. So when Gandy came down, he was very particular about everything, especially during the dinner table. When we ate, he was particular about table manners. It was that strict.
Were
So
you allowed to have like your own food and in the fridge? Were you able to just freely eat and drink whenever you wanted? Or now under Jason, and also to take a nap if you wanted or something?
well, yeah, we did have that privilege. No, I don't know about the other homes in other states and other cities, but we did have that privilege. Sometimes we'll bring snacks, went to Hardee's or something like that, and we were put in the refrigerator. So, and we would go down and open the fridge and eat whatever you want. But like I said, I don't know about the other homes. I know that there have been a lot of stories that people have said about other homes, how there was a lot of a lot of strict codes and stuff, like real
Yes.
strict.
Yes.
So we weren't really that. I didn't really face that situation. Put it that way. So
So if you came
um,
home after work one day, I mean, did you work regular shifts or different shifts?
well, I was attached to an artillery unit, so we kind of worked just a normal shift on my part. So if we weren't in the field or weren't deployed, it was just a Monday through Friday situation and
Oh,
weekends off.
all right. So
You know
when
what I'm
you
saying?
came home at the end of the day, were you allowed to like just lay down and take a little quick nap or something if you wanted? Under
Yeah, as long as
Jason.
like
Under
as long as
Jason.
there's no church or Bible study,
And was there
there was no
usually was there any day off under Jason?
Yeah, there was a couple of days off. Like I said, our schedule in Jacksonville, North Carolina, Monday dinner was on Monday, and then Tuesday I believe was soul winning, and then Wednesday was church service at night. Then Friday was a Bible study. Then Saturday night was a church service. Then of course Sunday morning and Sunday night. So that was our schedule. But we had maybe Thursdays off, and of course in between like soul winning meetings, we can relax. I know there was one brother that he would always go to sleep. I think he had diabetes. He later on had diabetes, but he had the early stages of diabetes, but he would always tend to sleep. He didn't know about it till later on, but he, on the rest of the other brothers, sometimes would go to sleep at certain times when they had time off.
Okay. Well,
So,
that's good.
it, yeah, it really wasn't that bad. And even sometimes we would play video games inside our service home. So and of course you didn't hear that with other states and other cities. I heard. So,
Well,
um,
there were I've heard stories of the video
oh really?
game. Yeah, the video game part. Yeah. And of course
But yeah,
now they're
that's
just they do all kinds of stuff now that you would have never dreamed of when you were in the home.
yeah. But anyways, Gandy came down from Washington State. He took over the church, and like I said, when he came down, he really brought that culture of Washington State
Like boot
situation.
camp
Yeah,
style thing, yeah.
yeah, and he changed a lot of things. And like I said, he wasn't a bad person. In my personal opinion, I think he's a good person deep down inside.
He's just a
But
company
like
man,
Davis
right? Who's
just used him. You know what I'm
oh
saying? The
yeah, for
board members
sure.
used him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
He really like. I know he told stories how he got saved in the army, and he told a lot of stories about things that he's experienced, and really sounds good. But like I said, with NTCC, they take real good people that were genuinely saved, and they turn them to monsters.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. Gandy's not an evil person, not a bad person, but I think
He's
he's
controlling
very
like
extremely controlling,
yes.
and he idolizes Davis
Yeah, very much
definitely.
so.
And I think my personal opinion, I think he takes more after Davis than he does his own parents. That's just my opinion.
Right.
So,
Oh yeah,
and
for
I never met
sure.
his. Obviously, I never met his dad because his dad died a long time ago. But his mom did come down to Jacksonville to visit him, and she was a real nice person. I
Yeah.
remember her.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, he took over in the year 2005, and he just was strict, overbearing, just controlling, and he really started off. It wasn't that bad. So the whole 2005 situation, he came down, changed things in the church. We went soul winning meetings and stuff like that, and he changed things on that too as well. And I think that was the first year I got blasted by him like several occasions. Gandy just really did not like jokes thrown at him. He's the type of person that he'll throw jokes at you, but when you throw jokes at him, he did not like that.
Right, cuz
And
you're that's disrespect in their realm.
exactly. I'll give you one example. I remember one time I had to pick up Associate Pastor Reverend Volks from the home, and I had to bring him to church, and I forgot about that. So I was heading to the church, driving off, from the home, and all of a sudden I looked at my rearview mirror, and there was Reverend Volks. He was running out of the house, and he was a real thin person at the time, very fit too. He was running out of the house, and he just shouting at me, and I was like way up in the hill. And I was surprised that he dashed, like he sprinted from the home all the way down to my truck. I said, "Man, he'd been on the Marine Corps for years, and he still has it." I had to pick him up, so I stopped. He went in the truck. I said, "I'm sorry, I forgot all about that." So it was kind of funny. So, anyways, when later on in the day we came back to the home, and I told Reverend Danny about it. He laughed about it. It was just a funny situation. Everybody laughed, and and then I told him I said, it's a good thing that it wasn't you. And I just pointed at him. It was just funny. Yeah, you know how he is. He was a big guy. And I said,
Yeah.
it's a good thing it wasn't you. And he looked at me, he says, I don't think that's so funny about that. I was like, and I just kind of like froze me. I was like, okay, I didn't say that, but
You're
I was
just
like,
having fun.
I was really shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just having fun. And I think another situation that, just to give you an example how he did not like jokes thrown at him, is when he made a joke at me. I can, till this day, I don't know what it was, but he made a joke at me, and I laughed. It was funny, ha ha ha, that, you know, and I looked at him. I said, "Shut up, sir." You know, and everybody said that. It's a slang. You know, everybody said, "Shut up, Karen. That's funny." You know, it's not like, you know, Tom telling you to shut up.
Yes.
Everybody have said that. So, anyways,
there was a time when that saying was very popular, and it might have been around that time frame.
Yeah, I was
like, shut up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. Like I said, I just, you know, it was, you know, it really wasn't disrespectful. But he looked at me, he says, "You want to be disrespectful, you can pack your bags and leave. Don't say that." Like, don't say that again to me, all right? I was like, okay, you know, like, I didn't really tell you to shut up, like, you know,
yes.
and, you know, be serious about it. But it was like, it was just a slang, you know. But yeah, he just one of those people that was very sensitive about himself and his esteem, that he just, even just a little things like that.
Did it seem to you, Andrew, that he put that, like, I want to be esteemed above just being a normal guy with the guys?
Well, at the time, I thought maybe he was just a strict person, because I've met people like him before.
Yes.
And I thought maybe, you know, because when I was growing up, I was taught respect. You know, I worked my first job. My coworkers did not know I was 17 years old. They thought I was a college student because I didn't act like a teenager. I was respectful. I was grown. It just didn't strike them that I was a teenager. I was taught respect. So, like I said, in my mind, I thought, again, he wanted respect. Just kind of respected that. But then it was kind of shocked me how he would say these things and do these things, and it just didn't seem normal, because it really wasn't normal.
So the church wasn't attached to the servicemen's home in that case. You were talking about driving to the church, so I take it the church was not attached to the servicemen's home or on the same property?
No, it's not. Actually, the church was actually on the other side of the town.
Okay.
The home was not it was really far away. But anyways, in 2005, we went. I'm just going to go up a little bit. I went soul winning, and I invited this girl out to church on base, and her name was Francisca, and it was actually my first person I ever invited out that actually came faithfully. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a man. It was actually a woman, or a young lady at the time. She's only a year younger than I was at the time.
Was she in the military too?
Yep, she was a Marine. She was on base. I invited her out to church. Brought her, you know, one of the sisters brought her out to church. She was just kind of like me. She only came here and there. She had little similarities like I did. She got deployed to Iraq that same year in 2005. So anyways, in 2006 rolled around. Again, he started, like I said, changing things, stuff like that. He still jacked people up. He was still this gung-ho preacher. You know, I think one time I got jacked up one time at a soul winning meeting. It was something I did at soul winning. I was actually just, like I said, I was still in the faith, new in the faith, and I did something wrong. I'm not going to get into it, but you know, you say the wrong things, you do the wrong things when you're just starting off. You know, you're just young and naive. I told him about it, and then he blasted me from the pulpit.
Oh, so he didn't deal with it at the time?
Yeah, instead of, you know, pulling me to the side and say, "Hey, you can't be doing that. That's, you know, some things you can't say, and this and that. Or some things you can't do." You know, when you know, confronting people, you know, kind of just canceled me, but he didn't. Of course, that's not the only time. He's done that many times. But I'm just giving you an example of what type of person he is.
Oh, no, that is something that R.W. Davis, the founder, his idol, did all the time. Instead of, and we see that in all the clips. I mean, Mike does it. They all do it. They don't pull people aside. They blast them or jack them up, as you said, over the pulpit.
There are control freaks in my family, like personal family. And I've learned their tactics, and I know what they do. And some of the things they do is similar to what the NTCC does.
Yes.
Same tactics. So I think one of the tactics is they like to embarrass you in front of people, not just NTCC, but even just control freaks in general.
Yes.
And they would do that to empower themselves, and then really put you in submission unto them. And so that's one thing the NTCC does. They will embarrass you in front of people. That way it puts you under submissive. Yeah. So anyways, NTCC, and they've been known to do that just to blast people on the pulpit, like you mentioned. So, but anyways, this girl, she comes out of church, and in 2006, she comes back. She starts getting saved. She gets saved. She starts getting involved in the church. She came from a girl on base that really didn't want to come out to church, and then she really just blossomed to a Christian woman. I believe she really did get saved too. And then about around the same time, there was a brother that came from Okinawa, Japan, and he was really like entrenched in NTCC. I mean, he wanted to go to the Bible college. Of course, he kind of dressed up like the old fashioned style NTCC, slacks all the time, flannel shirt, wingtip shoes, and he kind of had that old fashioned touch to him. He got really involved in church. Like I said, he was a sergeant in the Marine Corps at the time. Anyways, he came to church, and she started getting involved in church, and this guy from Okinawa, his name was Eric Rogi. But anyways, he came to church from Okinawa. He came down and got stationed in Camp Lejeune, and we added another brother to our home at that time. We added another member. So I was slated to go to my second final deployment in 2006, and so me and Francisca we were really close because I invited her to church, and she was really getting attached to me. She really saw liking me. It was a good deal. So anyways, I got deployed. But before I went, I told her to just write me a letter, kind of keep in touch with her. So when my second deployment, we got sent out to the Mediterranean Sea. When I came back to church, Francisca and Eric Rogi were together. They were courting. And I thought it was kind of weird that during the 6 months, it was that soon that they were just be so close.
Did she write to you?
No, she never wrote to me. That's the thing. I'm sorry to go back, but she never wrote me. And I know why, because what happened was Reverend Gandy actually hooked them up. And he's done that before. And other times past, he's known to do that, to hook people up. And that's one thing about cults. One thing I've heard from another source. A lot of times in cults, what they do to people is they like to match make people. They like to bring people together, hook them up, even though they were never met for each other. Do this matchmaking,
push towards each other. That goes on all the time in NTCC.
Yeah, brought them together. And the thing is, he waited for me to go on deployment. He waited for me to go out. And then when I came back, I thought it was kind of odd that they were just together, so close. See, at the time, I did not know they hooked them up. Of course, later on, I found out that Reverend Gandy did hook them up. That's the thing about NTCC is they will hook people up that they see fit to their eyes.
To their eyes. That they should be getting. That's a great point. Exactly.
To their eyes, they think, well, this person should be with this person, this man should be with this woman should be with this man. Even though they were never meant for each other, they would make that decision for them.
Can I ask you a question? Did you leave for deployment with the idea that you and this young lady were interested in each other in a romantic way?
Actually, we were.
Okay.
I was, and she was.
Okay.
And it was really to the point that a lot of people knew that she was really she had that desire for me, what I'm saying? And I knew that too. I thought maybe this is my time and this is my good chance of getting married.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever write her?
No, because like I said, she never gave me my letter because I know she was going on a lot of field ops at the rear.
Okay.
And she get a chance to give me the information. So
okay.
I just gave her the information. I said I was going to go on deployment, and it was that quick. I never thought that Gandy would hook them up. I mean, I never thought in the world that would happen.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, in NTCC, a lot of couples have been hooked up. And Gandy has done this before many times. And how I know that's because sometimes when he tells his stories around, say, the dinner table or sometimes around a fellowship meeting, sometimes he'll mention other churches, other places he's pastored. Sometimes he'll tell times that he's done weddings, and I think with one situation he said there was one brother that did not like one sister. He told her, bake the best cake that she can come up with, and he liked it, and he started liking her, and they started having romance. I think really that there was more story than just the cake. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, that's all it took.
Yeah, I think there's more story than that. I think he just manipulated him into getting involved with her, even though he didn't like her.
Can I ask you a question? What
Yeah,
did
go
you
ahead.
think of Keith Gandy's wife at the time? How was she in the home with all of you guys?
Well, to be honest with you, she was a real nice person.
Okay.
And I think I really liked her a lot. Not that way, but,
Yeah, I
as a
know what you
person.
mean.
I think she was, pretty much, I think that she was really controlled by Gandhi, like big time. And as much as I'm a big believer what the Bible says about the man being the leader of the household, because that's what the Bible says. But one thing I've noticed that a lot of the NTCC preachers they were just control their wives, like they're just, I don't want to say property, but just want to go that extreme.
Some do.
A lot
Some
of the
do.
wives are just really just highly controlled.
So, did you ever see circumstances where he dressed her down or behaved that way with her, controlling in front of you guys?
I know, like he sometimes they would fuss at her. One time, I think one time I saw her, they got in an argument, not really argument, just in a scuffle about something, and she kind of like gave into it because head of the household or the king of the household, put it that way. NTCC preachers, one thing I've noticed personally, that a lot of them would just be dictators
Yeah.
of their marriage. And I'm not married. I've never been married. But if I ever get married, I'm still going to be the leader of my household. And I'm never going to treat my wife like a dog. I'm never going to do that. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that with NTCC. They would treat their wives like a dog. And
Yeah.
they were, and a lot of them will be very quiet because they have to stay that way. They really don't want them to be outspoken or say things or get out of line.
Exactly. That is a trait of that group.
Cole Ganey was a nice person. I just think she was controlled by him big time.
Was it difficult to live in the home and have the preacher's wife? Were you ever did you ever feel like you were in a compromising situation? Like uncomfortable?
Well,
I would say
it
uncomfortable.
was in some cases it was weird, but to go ahead of myself a little bit. There were some situations, not with Nicole Gandy, but with other associate pastors' wives that came, like helpers' wives that came. A lot of helpers' wives started having problems with the brothers in the homes.
Problem, you
Lust
mean?
issues.
Oh, okay. Like from the
Yeah,
wife, from the woman to
wandering
the
out.
man, or from
Yeah,
the
the
man to the
wandering.
woman?
No, the women to the men.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, the wandering eye and things that shouldn't happen. And I just think that some certain situations, like a lot of times the ministers or associate pastors' wife would come down, and a lot of them would be young. A lot of them would be like fresh out of Bible college, and they'd be around these young men, and I'm just saying that I've noticed a lot of them started having problems, with the boys, with the men,
Yes.
and that it was a common thing that I did see. Now, Nicole Ganey wasn't like that, but I saw that with other
Right.
women, put it that way. So,
Well, Nicole at the time was probably, I think, probably older than some of those other girls that came along, possibly.
now we did have another associate pastor's wife that was a little bit older, and of course she too had a little problem too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Was it now? You say a problem. So is this just something that everyone noticed, or just you noticed? Was it
I don't
some?
know if everybody noticed, but I know personally noticed it. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay. So it wasn't like
and
you guys were in the room saying, "Oh man, what's up with that?" But this is
no,
just something
they
you
could.
noticed.
There could have been a brother. There could have been a brother out there that noticed it as well, but they just never said anything about it. You know what I'm
So
saying?
if you noticed it, so do you feel like anything was ever addressed, like from the pastor to the helper to say, because that is an awkward, that is part of the problem in the serviceman's model is when you start putting people of different sexes in there and you have young men and young women and testosterone and hormones, they're going to collide sometimes just naturally.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Danny never announced it. Like I
Okay.
said, a lot of the corruption that happened in TCC, a lot of times they would just keep it to themselves. They won't put it out a lot of times because they don't
Okay.
want to destroy good old reputation, put it that way.
But it
So
probably would have been more honorable to say something rather than sweep it under the carpet. But that's
well,
not
like I
how they
said,
do.
the the problems that happened was very discreet. You know what I'm saying? It
Okay,
wasn't like it
okay.
was really out there. It wasn't like the women went out and touched the men.
Okay, so it wasn't like
But
flaunting it, but it was
no,
there,
it
even
wasn't
if it
flaunt.
was subtle.
But I did see it. You know what I'm saying? I did see it. And
Okay.
I think there was one situation. There was one sister who was married to a associate pastor's wife. That she was actually the worst one. She had she was young and I think she had a little say problems with the brothers in the church, or their home. And I think later on they were moved to Missouri. He went to pastor church in Missouri, but I think they relocated them, kind of like get them out of the home. They were
Right.
put in a church that was not
That was
near a military
civilian.
installation. It
Right.
was like a civilian work.
Right. Right.
So I think that's what happened. They just to really keep her from saying these issues, put it that way. They relocated her or
Gotcha.
them. So yeah,
Gotcha.
so it wouldn't help. It really wasn't that bad to the point that it was flaunted and everybody knew about it. But like I said, I've noticed it. Now, who knows? Maybe somebody else may have noticed it too as well.
Oh,
So,
yep. Your viewpoint is corroborating a lot of young men, men who were living in homes who had that situation. Sometimes they were approached by a wife. So,
yeah, and chances are, I mean, it may have happened in another church too as well, another NTCC,
yes.
and a lot of times when that happens, they would actually make the men look bad, like they were monsters, and they were not. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and
You
a lot of
shift the
times, like I said,
blame. You shift
yeah,
it.
and a lot of times NTCC when something bad happens, and it doesn't happen. Sometimes happens all the time, but a lot of times they would just sweep it under the rug because they don't want the public to know about it.
Yep.
They don't want the congregation to know about it because they do. It makes the organization look bad. Makes the pastor look bad. And instead of sometimes you have to if you're at fault with something, sometimes you gotta come clean about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But Gandhi would never do that. Gandhi has violated and ran a lot of people off. And really, to be honest with you, with NTCC, when somebody is about to leave or they don't think they'll be an asset to the organization, if they say, for example, they have problems, like maybe they have a problem with their spiritual life and this and that, they won't help them much. You know what I'm saying? I've
Yeah.
noticed that too. And Gandhi was like that. There have been, say, one brother one time, his name was Candy Weir, and we just called him Ken, and he lived at home for a little while, and I think he married the wrong woman or something. He messed up, you know what I'm saying? He made a mistake, and I don't think Gandhi really just bothered to counsel him or try to get him on the right path. And of course, he ended up leaving the organization, leaving the church, and it was a bad deal. I know, like I saw him on base. I tried to encourage. You know what I'm saying? I didn't probably want much help, but it didn't seem like Andy really just cared much about him. You know what I'm saying?
From
So
his
that was the only situation as
behavior.
well.
From his behavior, you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. Like I said, if they don't see somebody's going to be an asset to the organization, and they're not going to help you out much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're really not. And I've noticed that as well. A lot of brothers, a lot of sisters, a lot of women, men and women that came to church that were involved with NTCC for a little while and just had a fallout because the preachers just didn't bother to counsel them or try to help them out. If
Yeah.
someone's weak in the faith, you're supposed to help them out. You're not supposed to kick somebody when they're down.
Well, what is even the definition of a pastor? It's rare to find that in that group. It's rare to find it really in the world. Someone who really exudes the pastor qualities.
Yeah, but like I said, that's one thing I did notice in the home. A lot of the say scandals I noticed in the home, and with Gandhi, he was just like I say, he's too busy trying to or too involved trying to impress the board members. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, and a lot of times when that happens, he really comes short of helping other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Can
but
I
like you said,
sidetrack you for a moment, Andrew?
go ahead, go ahead.
Regarding the home, you said something before that made me think of it. Were you how were the groceries purchased? Did somebody get them from the commissary, or were they purchased off base?
Well, I think at one time when the Gandhis came down, it was purchased out in town, but then of course they started doing the going on base at the commissary, and
How'd they get to the commissary?
usually it'll come up like ask a brother to come with them. Ones would have military IDs.
Mm.
Like I was one of them. See, at the time I didn't know nothing about that. I thought maybe just it was a good favor. You know what I'm saying? To do
Yes.
for the church and the say will the good work of the Lord, put it that way.
Right.
But yeah, that's how they would do it. Now, as far as other bases, Camp Lejeune did not have that strict codes when it came to coming on base or soloing on base or buying, groceries on base and stuff like that. So I guess that's one of the reasons why they started going on base and purchasing groceries on the commissary. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. Right.
but yeah.
And who, when you brought them the one time, did they pay for the groceries or did you?
No, they pay for the groceries. I know, like Nicole Gandy would actually have a whole collection of coupons,
Yeah, that was
like a
big.
whole collection of them. Like,
Yeah.
like she would come in with lots of coupons, and she would use them a lot. So,
Right.
but yeah, like I said, the Rogies started getting together. Their relationship was definitely just controlled. It was highly controlled, and see at the time I saw that, but I didn't make a big deal out of it because
Can you
I didn't think,
describe what you mean
NTC,
by controlled?
like I said, it was kind of like a chaperone, like you know, like I'm trying to figure out. It was like their them coming together was controlled. We all know that because
Right.
they were brought together, and then wherever they went, they're always called the pastor. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like like you went to the restaurant or went to the store, they will always have contact with the pastor to know what they're doing, where they're going. You know what I'm saying? Things like
No
that.
kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did. Yeah, I did notice that.
Wow.
And I know in 2007, after 2006, when I came back, when I was deployment in 2007, when I came back, of course, in 2007, I came back and the Rogies were together. I started dating another girl, another woman in the church, and she started coming, and she had a son at the time. She was a single mother, and
Did
and
you
really,
choose her to date?
I was about to say no, I did not.
Okay.
I I did like her a lot. She was gorgeous. She was I think she's about about 2 years difference younger, and I know I told Gandhi one time I wanted to leave because I was about to get out of the military in 2007, and he tried to get me to stay. He tried to get me to He said I'll be an asset to the church, which at the time I didn't think much about it, but of course, if you think about it, he said if you're an asset to us, I think it was more like you're an asset to NTCC. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what it really translates into. But anyways, no, our relationship was actually hooked up by him. He hooked us up.
In what
And
way? Like, how did that happen? Can you say? Do you remember?
well, I know he was trying to. It's kind of hard to explain. I know when he hooks people up, he'll call attention to the woman or the man, and then he'll call bring attention to the other opposite sex. And then sometimes he would like, I think one occasion he would just try to like, get her to get like close to me and talk to me and stuff like that. Like try to, coach her, things like that. Coach them to come near me and talk, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how it was. And of course at that time I was kind of shy, of course I was young. And of course I never dated a woman with kids, or she has one child, but anyways, that relationship didn't work out. And she ended up, getting with another guy. Then she didn't come back to church for a while. She came back later on, but she never came back for a very good amount of time. So I decided to leave. I told Gandhi I was going to leave, get out of the Marine Corps and go back to Virginia. But I was going to actually go to visit, not to visit, but to stay at another NTCC plant at Norfolk, Virginia. And at the time, it was the Tottens, Reverend Totten and his wife. So, but then he kind of talked me out of it, and I told, of course, my plan was to go be with the Tottens, to kind of help them out, still be with NTCC. But then he talked me out of it and wanted me to stay. He said I'm going to be an asset. He threw all these excuses put out me of me to stay. So I really bought into it. I wish I didn't, but I bought into it. I ended up staying for another good few years, and then
in North Carolina.
Later on,
you're saying
you
stayed in North Carolina.
Yeah, because I listened to him. He really, like I said, Gandhi's a manipulator. He really is. He knows how to get right in people's minds. It's one of the reasons why I don't miss him whatsoever, because he knows how to get right into your mind. He knows how to get you to do things with just persuasive words. It's like his words is full of spells. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He knows how to, he knows just how to pull your strings, put it that way.
Yeah.
And if you know his tactics, you can actually just bypass that. By the time I did not. So.
Right.
And he's done that to many people in the past. But anyways, I stayed in North Carolina, and I decided to go and join the Navy Reserves, go to another branch, and be part of the Navy Seabees. So it was just being a reservist. And so I told Gandhi about it, and I said I was going to join the Navy Reserves. And in 2007 and 2008 rolled around, and I think it was gotten worse in 2008. I know they had a revival, lots of revivals in 2008. I know the Johnsons came down, Davis came down several times. I know Reverend Asheville came down and did it like a 1-week revival. And everything seemed real nice, I think the whole 2008 was more like a revival service. And like pretty much the whole year had like a lot of services that had revivals. And
interesting.
Of course, later on, the Rogies got married. Francisca and Eric got married, and their proposal was pushed, put it that way, or controlled, because they try to get her to, or get him to propose to her very quick. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyways, they got married, and I think I think in late 2008, they both went to Bible college, both Rogie, Eric and Francisca. And then, anyways, to make things very short, like I said, the whole year was full of revivals, a lot of preaching, and there was a lot of things that went behind the scenes. Gandhi started really having issues with the church. People started having issues with him. I think a lot of people started realizing that he was just a control freak. You know what I'm saying?
Now, when you say having issues with the church, you mean that local church body in North Carolina?
Yeah, the local church body. I think a lot of people, like in mid to late 2008, really started seeing of who he was, just a control freak. Some called him a bully and stuff like that.
Was he?
And a lot of people.
Did he run anybody off? Like, were there still brothers living in the home?
Oh, he ran a lot of people off. I can go on and on about that. I like to say with Kennedy Ware or Ken. I think he ran him off. I think he ran another woman off, two women off or something, because of his misconduct as a pastor. Sometimes the thing about Gandhi is, he's not bipolar. He's not, but he acts that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like one moment he's like, he's a real good guy. He's funny. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've laughed a lot. He has a good character when it comes to, like, being funny and stuff like that. But and then one moment he's just a monster. Like, you look at him, you want to look at him and say, "What's wrong with you?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and
And you don't know which one you're gonna get.
Exactly. And like I said, I think that would have really ran a lot of people off. There was, like I said, I can tell you countless stories of certain individuals with names of people that ran off, but of course we don't have time for that.
Well, just saying that a lot were ran off, I mean, that fits the narrative of the group.
Now, even your attitude, if you have a bad attitude with people, especially when you're a pastor, and I know pastors are human, but you're supposed to lead. As a pastor, you're supposed to be, you're that spiritual leader. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And Gandhi really has come short with that good example. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And what's his bad attitudes, his controlling, his bullying, that he's really just ran a lot of people off. I know one situation that he lost his temper at one woman inside the parking lot outside the church, and she was really not a good person either. She was not about a division cause. There was a lot of division going on, and I didn't see it, but I know like two other brothers saw it. That she yelled back at him, he yelled back at her, and of course that really wasn't a good situation. So, but yeah, a lot of things started happening, not for the good, in 2008, late 2008. And I know in 2009 rolled around, we came to a situation in this time that there was a big, huge division in the church, or our local church. And there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of anger, there's a lot of malice, and there was a lot of lies going around. There was a lot of people that were just either didn't like Gandhi, and then they turned around, try to tell people to leave, and then a lot of people that had left didn't go back to church at all. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
They just, it was a mess. It was a lot of confusion, a lot of just gossip. There was a lot of malice and division, things of that nature. You know what
Where
I'm saying?
did you fall in the middle of all that?
No, I just kind of stay off to the side. I noticed that, but I thought maybe at the time, because like I said, I was still involved in NTCC, and I was really faithful to the church. And I thought maybe they just, they were rebelling. They were just sinning, for example.
Right.
Or they were just, just going back in the world. Of course, I was right. A lot of them were going back in the world. It's a sad situation. And I think our church lost about 1/3 of our congregation.
Wow.
At that time. Yeah, it was bad. And of course, like I said, going back to when Gandhi ran people off, he actually ran a lot of associate pastors and the wives off too.
Yes, I've heard. I was waiting to see if you said anything about that, because I have heard from those who worked with him that same thing.
Yep, and I know like there was a couple called the Eddles. I think he ran them off. I heard somebody tell me that they had an argument, and then of course the Finners, I never saw them again either. There were a couple that came and helped us too. And,
I know who they were.
Yeah, I think they came for a while. They were nice. They were nice people. I mean, Reverend Finner was a real nice person. Of course, I never saw him again. Never saw his wife again. And same thing with the Eddles. I never saw them again. They were nice people. It seemed like a lot of real good, genuine people were just run off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you're no longer an asset to NTCC. They were just run you off. And one thing I noticed by NTCC, either they will make you or they will break you.
Do you feel like with the associate pastors, Andrew, that Was Gandy controlling with them as well? Did you get any
Yes,
sense of that?
yep, I've noticed that too. I know there was one associate pastor that Yandy was just controlling, and he would just do everything for him, kind of like, hey, because Yandy like was very strict and very just detailed about things. Another thing about Yandy is that it seemed like everything you do for him, it's never good enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And NTCC in general is like that. I know a lot of people that I've known personally that have told me that too, from other sources.
Do you feel like
That
you're always
everything
in
you
a
do,
mode of striving to be right or do well or receive something positive from the man of God?
exactly. It's like they're trying to do their best, trying to sweat, trying to spew the blood, just trying to do some great work for the Lord. And then, of course, this controlling preacher comes along, and it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? And Yandy's like that. It's like everything you do is not good enough. People at the church who invite crowds, invite 12 people at the church, things like that, which sounds really good, but it's not good enough.
Right.
You lead songs, that's not good enough. You want to go to Bible colleges, great, but that's not good enough. You sign the contract, not contract, but yeah, contract. You sign the paperwork for go to Bible college, great, that's not good enough. Bible college, and you graduate, that's still not good enough.
Right.
You can't win for losing.
Yeah.
You really can't. And Gandy's just like that. And I know this associate pastor, he was really just, his name was Reverend Connell. His wife was Connell, Sister Connell.
I remember that.
And I know Reverend Connell would just do a lot of things for Gandy. And Gandy was just, I think one time got on his case about something. I did see that personally. And I thought, man, well, you got to kind of go harsh on your associate pastor that way. I thought at the time, I was like, that was kind of harsh. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It just came off on him. But it was weird. He just did it anyhow.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Gandy and his wife ever go soul winning?
I know one time he went soul winning with me and another brother on bass. See, Kent Lejeune is not that strict compared to other basses, where I understand. So, but yeah, he did go soul winning with us.
And what would like a regular soul winning session be like? Like, would you pray first and go out, or would you just go out? And what would you do when you were on bass? How would you spend your time?
We would pray first, and then we go out. I didn't knock on doors because they can consider that soliciting.
Yes.
Because I know when that staff NCO that talked to me about the living out in town, he told me the kind of rules of what I can do. Yes. And he said, for example, soul winning, he says, as long as you can't knock on the doors, but if somebody's coming your way, you can invite them out to church, and they can't do anything to you about that.
Right.
So that's what I did. Really wasn't that strict.
Did Gandy advise anybody to knock on doors there?
No, it didn't. I know there was a lot of people that went out in town that knocked on doors. I never went out in town. I always went on base.
Okay.
So I don't know what it's like personally.
Okay.
To go out in town and actually knock on doors.
Right.
So, but like the soul winning was really not that strict compared to other stories I've heard or interviews I've heard before.
Yes.
But yeah, that's where it was. Forward a little bit, in 2009, there was a split in church. It was bad. Church, I would say, like I said, lost about 1/3 of the congregation. And I think it really wore Gandy out. He got real mad. It's like he had a chip on his shoulder after that.
Split in what way, would you say?
I don't know. He's just like, when I go up, sometimes I'll go up to him. He just had a bad attitude. Of course, like he always had bad attitudes. It was just that certain situation that it just seemed like it drained him. It just wore him out. And I think he also got paranoid of who's going to be next. That interview you had before about the dentist split, how
yes.
a lot of preachers would actually create a list of who they think they're going to stay and who they think will leave.
Yes.
Are you saying that? Well, he never had that list, but he had that being paranoid about who's going to be next. And I think what it was, it stuck with him for like several months, because the split happened around January of 2009. And I think for the longest time, he just had that, well, who's going to be next? I want to do something about it. He just had this, he was on the edge about it.
So I just need to clarify what you're saying. You're talking about a split. You are talking specifically about the church in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, and when you say a split, does that mean a bunch of people left at the same time?
Well, it was kind of sporadic. It wasn't the same time. I know some left in late 2008, and but 2009 was like kind of like the peak of this split.
I see.
Anyways, Gandhi just it really wore him out. I just noticed that. We had a missionary that came, I believe, from the Philippines. I think it was, and his name was Reverend McDonald. You
Yep,
probably know who he is.
I do.
Yeah, and he was a real nice person. I really liked him. I know he passed away several years back, but
He and his
um,
wife passed away. Yep.
yeah, and he was a real nice person, real, just good character, good people. You know what I'm saying? He came down. He and his wife came down. I think they were going to come back to the United States. So Gandhi had them in the home. They stayed in the home for maybe a week. And Gandhi, even though he had this guest, this missionary in his house or in the home, he was trying to hide his, I guess his, it just this chip on the shoulder, put it that way. There's paranoid of who's going to leave, who's going to stay, this and that. And so, anyways, Reverend McDonald was nice. He got to know us. I think the one fellowship we got together, we sat down, and Reverend McDonald was there, and he told us his stories and this and that. And then after that fellowship was done, one of the brothers of the church had diabetes. That's the same guy who would like to sleep a lot. Remember, I was mentioning that
Oh,
before.
yeah.
Yeah, he had diabetes. He had a real case of diabetes, and he started getting the shakes. He started getting weak, and Gandhi said, "Oh, can you take Les?" His name was Les. Actually, his name was Les Lee, which
Leslie.
Leslie is a girl's name. Les Lee is a boy's name,
Right.
but we just called him Les. But anyways, he told me take Les, take him on base. I think he was still like a reserve in the Marine Corps. I think he had like VA benefits, stuff like that, but he still go on base and have benefits as well. But anyways, I took him on base. I said, okay, I'll take him on base of the fellowship, and I went straight from the home to the base. And then after he got his medications, he felt better. I said, okay, let's go back to home. Let's go to bed. It's like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. So, anyways, I came back to home, went in the house. I told Les to go to bed, and I went straight to bed and never saw anybody after that. Just, that was it. Anyways, that morning we woke up. It was like Sunday morning, and we had breakfast, and Gandhi was sitting there. Reverend McDonald wasn't there. I think he was doing some errands. I can't remember. I sat there, and Gandhi looked at me. He says, I have a question for you. I said, what's that? He said, last night when you came back, when you took Les to the hospital, and you came back, I want to know what you say to Reverend McDonald. I said, I didn't see him. I didn't see him at all. We came back from the hospital and went straight to bed. And I even told Les, did we see Reverend McDonald? He said, no, we just went straight to bed. I even had a witness. Then he kept badgering me and says, what you say to him last night when you came back? You talked to him. I said, I did not talk to him. Then he kept badgering, and then all of a sudden he just go eat. I said, okay. I didn't say anything about it, I ate. But anyways, that Sunday morning, we went to church after we ate breakfast. And Reverend McDonald was there, and he came over, and he says, Andrew, I want to apologize for what happened last night. I was talking to somebody, and of course, he was still learning names.
Right.
He says, I was talking to somebody. He was talking about his life and this and that, and we just had a good conversation. But I thought your name was Andrew. I thought your name was so-and-so, but I got your names mixed up. And Gandhi thought that I was talking bad about him in front of the missionary. And I think he caught on to that he had this paranoid, just delusion of, I'm talking about him. Let's expose Gandhi. He's the cause of the split or this and that. You can name it. Just telling him things. Quid pro quo, you know what I'm saying? I tell you things, you tell me things, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He thought that I told Reverend McDonald something, and he was paranoid. He wanted to know what I was saying.
But it wasn't you, it was somebody else.
Yes, and what it was, like Reverend McDonald just had a basic conversation that time when I was away from the home, taking Les to base. And when I came back, he wasn't there. But my name got mixed up.
Right.
And again, the sad thing is, Gandhi never apologized. Of course, he never apologized for anything. But, that was one thing that was it was embarrassing. I think that was, and there was many red flags that came up in the times past that I should have, paid attention to.
Join the
that,
club,
that kind
Andrew.
of told me to leave. But that was definitely a red flag there. That was
Yeah.
just like you accused me in front of a missionary, and not on that, you embarrassed me.
Yeah.
And it was sad, it was messed up, and I think he knew deep down he was wrong about it, and he never apologized for it.
He couldn't
But
humble
then later on,
himself to do that.
2009, I wanted to go. Yeah, in 2009, I wanted to go back to college. I was still I was in the reserves, and I was not active duty anymore, so I decided to go to college. But Gandhi did another thing that was wrong too, and like it just seemed like he would never learn. And remember that split that happened a while back when I was telling you about that split? There was one couple that the husband left the church. He left the organization. He was part of that split. But the wife wanted to stay. And I think what it was, they got divorced because, he left and she wanted to stay at NTCC. You know how it is that, divorce is encouraged if one leaves NTCC, no one wants to stay. You know what I'm saying? You heard that before, right?
Yes.
This woman, she had two daughters. She was a single mom after she divorced her husband that went along with the split. He had in his mind, well, let me hook up Andrew with this woman with two little daughters. And he never asked me, do you want to be with this woman? He never asked me, hey, do you like her? He never actually. I think nobody really knew that she went through a divorce till later on. But she was fresh off a divorce, and then he decided he wanted to hook us up. Like I said, he never bothered to ask me if I wanted to be with her. But anyways, the hookup started, and it was very discreet. He didn't really try to really at first try to push her on me. But later on, I think it was 2009, 2012, that I started having issues with this woman because he had in his mind that he was going to hook us up no matter what. It was that bad.
So you're talking about, wait a minute, let's get the time frame. So there was a split and everything, like 2008, 2009 time frame. This lady and her husband divorce in about what year?
Same year, 2009.
And then you're
I
talking
think
about 3 years later. So were you dating her all this time?
no, I did not date her. I was trying to avoid her.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not want to be with a woman with kids. I was trying
Okay.
to fight it. I was
Okay.
trying to fight this situation. The
Right.
thing is, the situation got worse. He would kept pushing on me,
Like
and
what would that involve? Like not a literal pushing of her on top of you, but
well, not that, right? But
what?
it was like she started stalking me.
Okay.
Yeah, she was trying to start following me around excessively, and that was um and he was actually giving like not I think I heard it verbally, but verbally and even with body language, he was actually giving her instructions to do it.
Yes.
Trying to like maybe if she can bother me, I will cave in and start dating her. But
Right.
the fact that the weird thing is that I knew who the husband was. He was a nice person, and also it was weird
That had to be
that
weird.
why wouldn't I date a woman with two daughters that I knew who the husband was?
Right.
We fellowship with each other. We sold one together. I know I sold one with him a couple of times. We had barbecue grills together. This and that. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he leaves. Okay, there's his two daughters you can raise up. I did not like that.
Yeah.
He really made it to the goal that he was going to hook us up no matter what. And she kept bothering me. And she was stalking me. I think, for example, like in church, I'll be in one situation, one place, and she will walk over to me, but then look at me, but then I'll walk away, and then she'll get closer, things like that.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to one corner of the church, like kind of get away from her, then she'll kind of discreetly follow me there. And then sometimes she will like away from me out of church when church is over with. I will walk out and she'll be right there. And of course, I want the on time. It happened almost all the time.
How old
And
were her daughters at the time, Andrew?
her daughter, like one of her youngest daughter, was just born. That was another weird thing. It was like she was just born. Like,
Wow.
come on, you know what I'm saying? Her second daughter was maybe, I don't know, like 5 years old.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. Follow me around. She would actually, like, sometimes I would drive down the road, and she would be in the parking lot waiting for me to drive by. And then she would come up, drive up behind me, and she's done that a couple of times. And I think and then another time, like I say, I can tell you countless times, even to the point I could take up the whole time, but I'm not gonna do it. I think another time we had a potluck at church, so I went to Reverend Gandy's office and had a friend of mine. We told us we were going to go to Walmart and get some supplies for this, potluck and this fellowship meeting. We told him where we were going to go, exactly what Walmart, what area in Walmart. Then we left his office. Me and my friend went to Walmart, went to the same spot where we told Reverend Gandy we were going to be at. Me and my friend were there, and then we kind of separated just a little bit. And as I turned around, there she was.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there she was, and she was actually pretending to look at something, but I knew that when it's like I knew that Gandy told her where I was going to be. It was very just obvious. And I think another time too, I remember one time she came out and I started to confront her peacefully, not just, it was the most peaceful confrontation I've dealt with her. I came out and I said, "Hey, sister, I want to talk to you very quick and this and that." And I talked to her in the parking lot. I said, "Just want to let you know in case you heard," because I heard a lot of people try to see the thing is Gandy didn't want the only person trying to hook us up. He got the whole church involved.
Oh, no.
Yes, he did. He got the whole church involved. So I knew there was a lot of rumors. I heard it. I heard a lot of things that were talk. There were a lot of talk going around about even it was just plain obvious that I've heard these things about me and her and trying to get us hooked up and this and that. So anyways, I confronted her and I said, peaceful, I said, just in case you think I, was interested in you and this and that. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said, well, to let you know, I'm not really interested in you. I never will be, and I just I want to marry a woman with no kids. That's how I told her, no kids. That's my preference. It's still my preference. But I told her peacefully, but she did not take it. She didn't take it right. You know what I'm saying? She did not like that at all. And after I was done, I thought she would just really just soak that in, just kind of like. But she cried to the pastor. She told Reverend Ganny about it, and he brought me in the office, and he chewed me out. And he said, "I don't like you attacking my church members." He says, "You don't talk to somebody in the parking lot at night and blah, blah, this." Of course, that time he yelled at that woman in the parking lot at night. Of course, like I said, he has no room to talk about that.
Yeah.
Remember that time I was telling you about that? He yelled at that woman in the parking lot?
Yes.
It happened at night, and he yelled at her, and she yelled at him. Of course, he had no room to talk about that. He told me that, "I don't like you attacking my church members. She don't like you." And I think he tried to cover up. And so, and I knew that was a cover up. And they're just, I think, over time, from 2009 to 2012, this went on. It got worse and worse and worse over time.
Hey, Andrew, we're going to have to wrap this up soon, this portion. So I don't know where you want to leave this off at, because we've been doing this like an hour and 34 minutes.
Oh, I'm going to wrap it up right now.
All right, and then we'll continue the next time.
Wrap it up right now. Like I said, then I left in 2013. That's when I left. I left Jacksonville, North Carolina in 2013, and I didn't leave. I'll get to another part after I left, but technically I didn't leave NTCC till 2014. So that's what really happened in a nutshell.
What caused you to leave? Did you leave Jackson? Did you leave Camp Lejeune because you moved, or because you had it? That was enough.
Well, there's that too. Both. It was both.
Okay.
One, I left North Carolina and moved back to Virginia because I didn't have the funds to actually move to another state or another city.
Right.
Or even move down town at the time. So I moved back to my parents' house, mom and dad's house in Virginia.
Okay.
Which, I'd rather deal with them.
Yeah.
I didn't get along with my mom much. The situation with this woman and that situation with Gandy, it just all built up over time. It just got to me. And so I thought, and at the time I thought it was just Gandy. It wasn't an organization. Of course, later on when I got out, went back to Virginia, then I realized it wasn't just Gandy, it was the whole organization.
We all come to that realization. We came to that realization in Virginia.
It all came together.
Yeah.
This woman, the hookups, the controlling, and all the just the badgering, and just
Yes.
this manipulation, it just drained me. It drained my spiritual life too,
Yeah.
even to the point when I came back to Virginia, I was not on fire for God. And I'll get to another part about what happened to me after NTCC. So,
Well, good. This is a great stopping off place.
all right, thank you so much.
All right, Andrew, you have an awesome day.
All right, you too. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.